Get on the church sun forest and it's you. Feather all the apple between his palms. Follow the breadcrumbs. Don't even play the violin. Here's where we were. So, what happened last time for the people who weren't here last time? What's the octopus's name? It's Ari. Ari. For the people who weren't here last time, what happened last time is they fought Dream, Technophil and Will fought Dream, and then everything reset. And since Dream is the puppet player, they're now technically in the place where you wait for your next play, like in the backstage. And Phil is realizing that right now. That's basically what happened. Hey, thank you. We reached the level 2 hype chain. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. All right, let's find some music.
Hi, Nikki. I got my first paycheck today. Take some of it.
Oh
DDD,
no!
thanks
Thank
for streaming.
you so much, Ruby. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Glad to be here for the stream. I mean, it feels like I watched you stream only 10 minutes ago.
What?
Have a chill stream, Nikki.
No way. That's so crazy. It actually feels like, yeah, it actually feels
Hey,
like
Nikki,
I've just seen you.
You look lovely today. I want you to know
But
that you
I
are
don't know
awesome
if-
and your
I don't know
pants are the
why.
best. Also,
Thank you.
can I make some fan art for you? D.
Yeah, of course. Alright.
I always love getting your stream notifications.
Hey.
Thank you for always being so sweet.
Well, thank you for always being so sweet, chat. I actually, which is crazy, like when I get to know people, I actually like get to know people when I get to know streamers and they like comment to my chat. They're always like, "Oh my god, your chat is so nice." So thank you for making this community something so nice and something so friendly to new people and to my friends and to everyone. I really appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. So yeah, thank you for being so nice, chat. Thank you. Anyway, let's continue with passerine. I'm gonna start this again. All right. I've been here before. Oh god, I need to get back into reading. We've all been here, all of us. Everyone caught in this web. Tommy made a non-committal sound as he waved a hand through the air. More or less, he wiggled. He wiggled his fingers absently as he thought. It's like, well, we're all in this play, aren't we?
Hi, Nikki, my friend Rory, and I say hi
said.
less than 3.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Rory and Annexus. Hello, I hope you're well. Sorry, I need to get back into the street. Okay, you know what? We're gonna read a little bit off the top because I need to get back into the motion, the streaming. So we're gonna read back from from Will and his mother's part. You've stopped again. Wilbur slowly lowered his bow, looking around the tower with a grooming sense of unease. He did not remember learning the songs he's been playing for his mother. Did he write it himself? Was it a ballad from some long-dead composer? Still thinking about the unfamiliar tune, Wilbur walked silently towards the table in the corner, where the silk-lined case for his violin stood open and waiting. He placed the instrument gently inside and snapped the case shut. For a moment, his fingers lingered on the cold clasps.
Hey, Nikki, this is my first time donating. Love your streams. I have a project in English, so I am making it you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I don't even play the violin. He turned towards his mother, who continued painting as if nothing happened, lost in her colors. Mother! Wilbur called. Mama? She paused, then gestured him over. Come look at this, Will. Wilbur made his way over to her, stopping just behind her and placing his hands on her shoulders as he leaned in to look at her work. There was a painting hanging. There was a painting hanging in the hallway downstairs that Wilbur worked under at least a dozen times a day. It was the official family portrait, done by their court painter. When Tommy was just a toddler and slept soundly through everything, Wilbur had always hated it. They'd all looked so stiff and serious, and Wilbur could still remember the horrid pins and needles he acquired from sitting on the floor for hours on end. And his mother, in response, had made it beautiful. She used brighter colors, softer colors, turning the dark, somber shades into something that had felt more alive. Everything was the same, and yet everything was different. Still seated on a simple throne was Mother herself, but with more grey in her pinned-up hair.
Hi, less than 3.
Hi, Drew. I hope you're well. Thank you for the 3 months. Behind her, I hope you're well. Behind her, a hand on her shoulder, was Father. He stood with his blue eyes lit up with pride, the only signs of his age in the laugh lines forming at his temples as he smiled back at Wilbur from the canvas. And then, drawing attention inevitably to him, there was Tommy, leaning against the arm of Mother's chair. He was older too, with longer hair curling over his ears and shoulders, but the traces of his childhood remained in the wolfish grin and the cocky quirk of his eyebrows. Before Wilbur could think better of himself, he reached out to run his fingers along the painted lines of his brother's face. Fortunately, the paint had already dried, and Wilbur was free to trace the gentle curls of Tommy's hair. Then, slowly, Wilbur's hand drifted towards the floor, where he had been sitting in the original painting. He wondered how Mother made him beautiful, if that was at all possible in the first place. He wondered how the years had made their mark on him. But instead of paint, there were only pencil marks where Wilbur was supposed to be, vaguely in the shape of a person, a sketch. Right, let me sit differently, chat. Okay.
Hello, Niki. Looking beautiful as always, but I just wanted to share that I came out to my mom yesterday. She supported me.
Congratulations.
Love your streams.
Thank you. Okay. He looked down at his mother, and she turned in her seat to look at him with a smile. You're not done yet, she whispered. Oh, you're not done yet. I can't do the voice right now. I need to get into it first. Raising her hand to cup his cheek and gently wipe away the single tear that had escaped without his notice. I ruined it, he sobbed. I'm sorry. No, darling. That's not what I meant at all. She got up from her seat and wrapped her arms around Wilbur. Wilbur had to duck his head to bury his face into his shoulder, trembling with a grief he could not name. His mother held him like he was a child again, seeking comfort from nightmares. You have ruined nothing. You are the greatest gift of my life, Wilbur. But I do not want you to be here. He pulled back with tear-stained cheeks, unable to fit enough air into his heavy lungs. Here? He asked. Where is here? The art tower, she replied simply. And everywhere. And nowhere. And Wilbur remembered. I'm just gonna loop this. Okay. I've been here before, Filza said. We've been here, all of us. Everyone caught in this web. Tommy made a non-committal sound as he waved a hand through the air. More or less. He wiggled his fingers absently as he thought. It's like, well, we're all in this play, aren't we? That's what he said. If that's right, then this place is the wings, where everyone waits before the curtains rise, or after their part is done. He looked up to Filza. Or when they're waiting for their turn. We're all dreaming, Filza murmured, repeating the green god's own words. He's put us to sleep while he's writing the next story and is giving us good things to keep us pacified, like children. He looked down at Tommy. watching his son's expression as it shifted. Philza was sitting against the trunk of an apple tree with Tommy's head resting across his lap, and apple blossoms falling idly through the hazy hair. And under any other circumstances, it would have been a perfect day. And it was. All Phil could see was phantom blood on his hands. Oh, as it was, all Phil could see was phantom blood on his hands from the last time he'd held Tommy this close. And a growing sense of trepidation as each second ticked by. I'm sorry, chat. I'm a little bit confused today. Another second where the green god was tearing the real world apart. Another second towards another story of rebirth and tragedy and unknowing. Another second without knowing where Techno and Wilbur were, whether they were safe, whether they were alive, whether they could still remember who they were and who he was and what they still had to do. You aren't really you either, Philza said. Less of a question and more of a latent that he was right. Hesitantly he ran his fingers over Tommy's hair and felt his heart snap when Tommy did not pull away. You're someone I want you to be. I'm someone you need me to be, Tommy corrected. Does that make any less of this real? Does that mean I'm not really here trying to make you wake up and go save my dumb brothers? Does that mean I'm really gone? Not even a ghost or a memory? He shrugged. Who knows? You're supposed to be the adult here, you tell me. Adults don't have all the answers, Tommy, Phil said. No matter how much I wish we did. Answer me this then, Tommy said, reaching out to run a hand over the obsidian feathers of the wing Philza had been using to block the sunlight from his eyes. How the hell did you hide these? Hard to imagine I just didn't notice you walking around with two massive fucking wings jutting out of your back. I'm a god, Tommy, Phil said slowly. I can hide anything. Tommy's blue eyes slid to Phil's. Not everything. Without waiting for a reply, Tommy sat up and put both of his hands on Phil's shoulders, his expression deadly serious. I never knew this side of him, Phil thought. And I never will. Listen, listen, Tommy said, as if Philza was not already hanging onto his every word, memorizing every syllable and intonation. I know you've already figured it out. You know why Dream is so afraid of you, and it's the same reason why you're the only person that can break out of here. If I can, Philza said. Why have I never done it so before? We've been in this cycle for eons. You've come close, Tommy replied. So close, a few times. But either Dream always finished rewriting before you could, or... Tommy paused for just 1 second before continuing more resolutely. Or you didn't want to leave. Philza opened his mouth to say he would never do that. He would never jeopardize an entire universe just to reveal in some lie, no matter how beautiful it was. But then he realized he already had. Swallowing the bitter taste on his tongue, Phil asked, I want to stay, Tommy. Tommy blinked, his expression crumbling with anger and disappointment and then clarity. As the first of Philza's tears began to drop, a warm and silent rainfall. Thank you.
H-I-I-I-I, Niki, love you.
Tommy.
You are so calming to watch.
Thank you, I appreciate it. A warm and silent rainfall. He never could hide anything from Tommy. But you wouldn't, Tommy finished. Oh, but you won't, Tommy finished. Something like pride flickering in his eyes. But I won't. Philza confirmed, wrapping his hands around Tommy's wrist and holding on for dear life. I have to end it, Tommy. I can't put everyone through this again. I can't put Wilbur and Techno through this again. Tommy grinned, triumphant. That's my dad. That's my dad. My Tommy. And with that, Philza gently pulled Tommy's hand away from his shoulders and stood, brushing apple blossoms from his clothes. They fell to the grass, limp and already rotting despite their loveliness. Tommy got up, and for a moment they stood there together, just son and father, looking out over their orchard and remembering slow days when once they were four, with Tommy on Wilbur's shoulders and their mother painting and Philza tossing flowers into the air, just to hear his family laughing. They call you the angel of death, Tommy began, and Philza knew the end was near. But that's not all you are. What are you, the god of Philza? The words were Tommy, but the voice was not. It was a whisper of 1,000 different Tommies from 1,000 different universes. It was the shout of those who had been Philza's sons and those who never were. It was the battle cry of soldiers and thieves, the exiled and the dead, the lost and returning. It was the demand of all the boys Philza had failed. Are your wings not a reminder of what you are? You are passerine and bird of prey. Both. Philza turned to look at Tommy, but he was not looking at Tommy. Or, more accurately, he was looking at all of Tommy. Brief images of all the Tommies that had come before. Here, a tall man with a golden crown of laurels. Here, a young boy with a broken compass strung around his neck. Here, a feathered creature with wide blue eyes. Here, a weathered warrior with alliums tucked into the pockets of his ruined coat. God of death, they call you. Every Tommy said it once. And they are closer to the truth than what they think. After all, is death not just a final act of liberation? Tell me you look out every open window and wish only you could fly. Tell me that the spider and his infinite authority fears above all. Tell me what the spider, Tell me what you are. I am the god of freedom, Philza said, and I'm flying the fuck out of here. Damn right you are, Tommy grinned, still flickering, still all of him, so go! Philza spread his wings. I don't know why I'm finding this passage so hard to read. It's like very hard for me to read. I don't know why. Aiming for the sky. Like not emotionally, but it's just like hard to read. But that might just be because I'm not read in yet, you know? He was the god of freedom, and he was flying the fuck out of here. But also, more than that, he was a father. So despite the world waiting for him beyond the sapphire sky, he turned to look at his son one last time. His golden boy with the golden smile, and he hugged him. It was a simple thing, a quiet thing, that parents have been doing for children since the very concept of parenthood was created, but still, to Phil, it felt like a revelation. Every version of Tommy hugged him back. I wish we could have had more time, Philza whispered, his tears coming on more quickly, so warm they might burn right to the bone. I wish I could have watched you grow up. I wish I had loved you like you deserved. I wish I could have made it all up to you. I wish a universe's worth of wishes for you, my boy. I know. And this was just Tommy's voice. Tommy, singular. This fills us, Tommy. I better not see you, Will, or Techno again for a long, long time, he added, which Philza knew meant, I will love you. Without requisite or deadline, I will love you. Philza replied We aren't in any hurry, which meant we love you too. Then Filza let go. Tommy was gone, he was alone, and the sky was awaiting far above him. Mother tilted her head towards a distant sound that Wilbur couldn't hear. We don't have much time, she said firmly, her hands fluttering like paint-stained moths set aflame. He's almost done, and then we have to do this all over again. But Wilbur was silent, was still reeling, his mind going through 1,000 thoughts per second and managing to understand none of them. We were fighting. Always fighting, you lot, Mother said with a smile, but her eyes were sad. Deep breaths now, Will. Tell me what you know. I was in a city in the north, Wilbur said, his mouth tasting of ash and melting snow. Outside a church with broken windows. Yes, you were. I don't play the violin. No, you don't. Wilbur glanced at his mother painting, the one with soft colors and old lines. And Tommy will never live past 15. No, Mother replied, regret and sorrow, two of Wilbur's own restless shadows gleaming in her eyes. He won't. And you're dead too, Wilbur continued, free falling into the abyss, aren't you? Yes, I am. He ran his shaking hands through his hair, clutching a handful of the brown strands and almost tearing them away in his terror. It was a fear he knew well. Thank you, Ruby, for the sub. It had never truly left him since the night he found her gone. He'd been too sick to attend her funeral afterwards, spending feverish days in and out of consciousness. When he'd finally been steady enough to pull himself out of bed, they'd already buried her, and he only saw her again in painted portraits that didn't quite capture the brightness of her smile. And in the middle of the night, when every hallway of the castle was haunted by her. But now she was there, standing before him, older than she had been when he lost her, and still younger than she deserved to be. She deserved decades. She deserved infinity. And Tommy did too. I want to stay with you, Wilbur said, still a child, always a lost child with her. Because I miss you. Because you were the one person that I had nothing to prove to. Because you can make things all right. You can fix the things that I broke. Can't you? She looked at him. He knew her answer. You could stay, she said kindly. I won't fault you for it. She knew she meant it. So why did the pain in his chest only get worse? A soft breeze swirled into the tower. Wilbur inhaled the scent of fresh apples. It was so real. So real. But then he looked at the painting again, staring at the incomplete version of him, and his father, who had aged when he could not, at Tommy, older than he ever would be in truth, at his mother, who had given him her artist's hands. Will you forgive me? Wilbur asked, his voice rough and small. If I still want to live without you. In reply, she pulled him down gently and placed a soft kiss on his forehead. I loved you before I even met you, she whispered against his skin. And I loved you even more after I did. And I am sorry for leaving too soon and leaving too much. She pulled back, her eyes shimmering and hands warm on both of Wilbur's cheeks. But look at you. Look how much you've grown. Look how far you still have to go. Come with me, he asked, pressing his face closer against her pain-steeped palm. You can lie and say you'll be coming with me. I'm always with you, Will, she said, smiling, a wavering smile. I am in every note you play and every song you sing. I fight your every battle and feel your every pain. And I feel your joy and your compassion and your regret and your bravery. Whatever you do, Will, I am with you. And he swallowed roughly. And Tommy, you and your brother, she said, are bound by something stronger than fate and stronger than death. She dropped her hands and stepped back. The distance between them was a chasm. One is gone, but not forever. One is gone, but not the other. Wilbur took a rattling breath and squared his shoulders. He wasn't ready, but he had no other choice. He gave his mother one last lingering look, all the things he still wanted to say. He said it with it, and the I love yous addressed to hallway ghosts, and all the I wish you were here screamed into the silence of his own head. He would never see her again. He would never see Tommy again. Those were the truths. He would have to learn to live with it. All that grief and love and hope and fear in one word. Goodbye, Wilbur said. He shut his eyes as he turned away, unwilling to look at what he would be leaving behind, his perfect mother and her perfect painting of what could have been. She might have said goodbye back, but the wind was whistling past Wilbur's ears as he took off, running, drowning out everything else. Give me a second, chat. I need to clean my nose. 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Okay. She might have said, oh yeah, when he opened his eyes again, the arched windows was waiting before him, opening into the endless sky. He leaped, and his father caught him. Wilbur grinned up the winged figure above him, and they soared past the eddying clouds. Always have to make a last-minute entrance, don't you? Wilbur looked down at him as he tightened his hold on Wilbur's hand, obsidian wings cutting through the air in persistent, blooming beats. Are you alright? Was the first thing he said. He sounded like he was choking on his own heartache. For once, Wilbur found he was just like his father. Wilbur closed his eyes against the rushing wind, letting it dry his lingering tears. No, he admitted, but I will be. Wilbur looked around at the open sky, seeing nothing but blue and white until the distant horizon. So, Father, how are we getting out of here? Even in the separate sadness, Wilbur still noticed a small smile on his father's face. Do you trust me, Will? I just jumped out of a tower for you. Father's laughter was a strained sound, but it was almost like music. What if I ask you to let go of my hand? What if I asked you to let go of my hand? Wilbur didn't think. He just let go. For a moment, he was weightless, suspended mid-air, as clean and pure as the clouds that were the sole witness of his slow descent. There was no life, and no death, and no Wilbur, and no enemy waiting for him on the other side. No dead brothers, no lost brothers, no mothers in towers, no fathers nearly regained. There was only the falling. Will? Will, Father called out over the rushing wind. Open your eyes! Wilbur had not even realized he'd closed them. When he opened them again, all he could see was the welcoming blue and his father's falling right beside him, wings tucked in close. "I saw Mother," Wilbur said, to the open air, his hand in his pockets as if it were a normal afternoon conversation. "I saw Tommy," Father replied. "He said to tell you not to die yet." Wilbur smiled faintly. Sounds like him. He balled his hands into fists where his father couldn't see them shaking. But was it really him? Really them? "I don't know," Father sighed as they hurtled into nothingness. "And does it really matter? Well, I suppose not," Wilbur said. "We had them back for a moment. Was it all it was in the end?" He spun into the air to face his father in the short time since they'd faced off with Dream. His father's eyes had aged a million years. More somberly, Wilbur said, "We have to get Techno back too. Where is he?" "Tucked away somewhere else, like I was. Like you were. Like I was, like you were. Sorry, chat. I don't know why I'm having difficulties right now. How did you get me then?" Filza grinned. "Like this." He unsheathed the sword in his at his hip and tore a hole right across the sky below them. "What the fuck? What the fuck?" Wilbur shouted, as the tear in the very fabric of the universe spread before him. It was a pitch-black scar running across the blue, a jagged line of nothingness. Wilbur reached out to clutch his father's arm, his heart rioting inside his chest as it projected what his eyes were definitely seeing. "What the hell is that?" "Our way out," Filza said, moving closer to Wilbur, his wings folding over the both of them like comforting childhood blanket. "Falling is the easy part, Will. Now it's time for the crash." And they fell into the dark and were gone. Okay. I should know you. The words fell in a pathetic rush from Techno's mouth. I should, but I don't. The little girl, who was his sister, had been his sister just a few seconds before, stared at him with wide eyes that were like twin pools of ancient water reflecting his own stained face back at him. Her question echoed in his head, a chant, an accusation, a lament. "What's my name? What's my name? What's my name?" Techno wrenched his hand away from her and scrambled backwards, his breath coming fast and harsh. She frowned after him, but did not move to follow. "You're my sister," he sobbed, clutching the hand that has held her so gently, so familiarly. "But I don't remember your name." Hers and her siblings, and their fathers and mothers, once knowledge as common as air, now slipping from his fingers. He stared at her, begging the universe to give him one syllable, one letter. He would take anything. He would take breadcrumbs. "I killed you," he whispered, falling into the dirt, a puppet with no master. He put his head in his shaking hands. "I killed all of you." "No." The sternness of her voice made him look up. She still stood where she had been, a pillar of stone, her face pink with fury. "That wasn't you. The spider got you. That's all." "That's all?" Techno shouted. The forest was oppressing on them. He knew it. The darkness should take him again, just as it took all of those years ago. The last time he'd been down this road. "Yes," she replied. "Yes, that is all. It was all him, never you. We understood that then. We understand that now. Nobody blamed you or will ever blame you for something you could not control. We're not that horrible or that stupid." But I hurt you, Techno whispered. I know I did. You must have been so scared. I wasn't, she said, but Techno knew it was a lie. The wobbling of her lower lip. You would never hurt me. I knew that. She stepped closer, slowly, as if she were approaching a wounded wolf. And it's important to me that you know that too. Something flickering in Techno's periphery, and they both turned to see the forest open just up ahead. Beyond the darkness, there was a small clearing blazing with sunlight. Surrounded by flower patches and shrubbery was a house, small and cozy, with a brick chimney letting out pale smoke. A window was open, and through it Techno could see a table set for dinner, and children fighting over an apple pie. A tall, weary man with his pink hair pulled back from his face was swatting at them with no real force, telling them to share. You greedy little monsters. A woman with braided hair stuck to the side. She threw her head back with a leap laugh. One of the kids leaned too far in the scuffle, fell face first into a bowl of mashed potatoes, and began wailing. Another child, almost as old as Techno, rolled her eyes warmly and promised to do anything he wanted if he would just stop crying. Techno saw all of them. None of them saw Techno. They're calling me back, the little girl said. But Techno couldn't take his eyes off the house and the family that lived in it. His house once, his family, warm and lovely and easy. I can't go home yet, Techno said, hating himself more and more with every word. I still have to save Wilbur and Filza. I still have to bury Tommy. And I still have to put that green bastard into the goddamned ground. Well, duh. When he turned around to her again, she had her hands on her hips and a sad smile on her face. I said they were calling me back. No one said anything about you. Not everything is about you, you know. Despite everything, Techno managed a weak laugh. Of all the people to be my guide through this shit afterlife, why did it have to be you? Because my spirit is too big for my own body, she replied, hauntingly. Chilly. And I'm tired of some random man deciding my life's over me. He didn't even ask if I wanted to be a human being, if I wanted to be a frog in the rain. Did he ever consider that? No. Instead, he made me small and stinky and boring. She wrinkled her nose in disgust. I want to be more than someone else's backstory. I want to be the hero. I'm going to be the hero next time. Just watch. I already am, Techno said softly in the distance. He could still hear the laughter. No, of people he used to know by heart. But closer somewhere just behind him, he heard a voice, calling his name. Techno turned towards the voice. He would always turn towards that voice. There was only the forest of the path, broken branches and nothingness, and still, somehow he knew he would be safe in it. Sorry. He shakingly rose to his feet, each small movement sending electricity through his veins. His bones knew he should be going with her, going home and starting the circle anew. The wheel had to move forward. It was not how the real story ended, but screw the wheel. Screw what the storyline dictated. He was Technoblade, and he was going to write his own damn story. He stood his ground, felt the wheel push at his back, shoving him roughly forward. But if he was even half as stubborn as the little girl before him, then he had nothing to fear. The ground held beneath him. He passed a hand over his misty eyes. I have to go, he said tiredly. Wilbur's looking for me. She grinned. So get going, you slow old man. I'm not that old. Whatever you say, Grandpa, she replied, taking one step towards the light and then another. Oh, before I forget, everyone wanted me to tell you something. He leaned towards her. What is it? She leaned towards him. You look dumb with that hairstyle. Oh no, you look dumb with that hairstyle, she whispered gravely. Please keep your hair out of your face because it's starting to function like curtains. You little brat. Techno moved to grab her, but she danced out the way, laughing so hard she almost tripped over her feet. She moved to go again, but stopped at the very end of the road, silhouetted against the sunlight. You know, for what it's worth, she said, turning just enough for Techno to see a faint smile on her face, I think the Green God made the right call this time around, making you my older brother. You were pretty great at it. Before I murder all of you, Techno said, his throat burning from a stoppered sob. You can't ever accept a compliment, can you? It wasn't that great of a compliment to begin with. Fine, I take it back. Don't you dare, Techno began, but she was already gone. Always have to have the last word, he thought, fondly, glad to even have that small scrap of her to take with him into the dark. Hi, Zuko! Hello! What? Come here. Come here. Can you see him? No, you can't. He likes his attention, and I'm not giving it. Come here. Zuko. What can I lure him with? A banana peel, maybe? You want a banana peel? Yes, you do want a banana peel. Oh, honey, I got you now. I am reading right now. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the kisses. What? No, you're stuck in my headphone. There you go. Are you gonna lay here? Okay. He's just gonna lay here now. Anyway, sorry, chat. Sorry, cat break. Cat break is over now. Okay. He folded the memory of her running home, twin braids bouncing against her shoulders, blades with each excited step, and tucked it behind his heart, where it would always be so safe. She would stay here, right next to the little house with the laughing strangers, right next to Tommy. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the smell of pine trees and flowers and apple pies, and stepped off the path. He walked first, then ran, ducking under branches and shaking his feet out of the tangled undergrowth, tearing through the dim, with only Wilbur's voice to guide him. Techno! Will? Closer now. Stray branches tugged at his clothes and his hair with sister's advice, and from pure annoyance, Techno ripped a strip of cloth from his shirt's sleeve and tied his hair back into a simple knot at the nape of his neck. It wasn't an elegant braid, but it would have to do. He continued running. Wilbur, he called again. Techno! Just to the right of him. Techno! Over here, Techno! Techno fell against the tree, taking in what was before him. A strange dark line stood out in the dim, blacker than black, cut straight from the darkness of the lowest caves of the earth. It felt lonely. Standing beside it, wings tucked in close, was Filzer and Wilbur. Come on, Wilbur said, a half smile on his face. You're late! Techno rushed to him and gave him a swift punch on the shoulder. Wilbur stumbled, almost falling back into whatever the black cat was before Techno caught him. Caught him by the wrist and pulled him upright again. Okay, Zuko's leaving. How many times do I have to lose you in a single day? Techno demanded, squeezing Wilbur's wrist just to make sure he was real. He was here. He wasn't part of a strange dreamscape. Wilbur rubbed sheepishly at his shoulder and said, I didn't really have a say in it. Keep close to me from now on, Techno ordered, releasing Wilbur after he was sure the pulse at his wrist was there. And you? He turned to Filza, ready to unleash his pent-up emotion on the nearest god available, but the fraught words died on his lips as he took in his old friend. You look different. Filza shrugged one shoulder. I've been here for hours. He saw Tommy, Wilbur added, by way of explanation. Is he okay? Techno asked, stepping towards Filza. Filza shook his head. We can talk about it later, he said, sounding strangled. Techno understood it would take him years to speak about what happened on that road. For now, it was his own burden to carry alone. Someday he'd share it, but not when the wound was too fresh, too hurting. I'm gonna get some food, chat. Maybe I'm just hungry. Food break. Yeah, I'm just... Do I want to get food from the kitchen? But that would take time to prepare it. No, I'm just gonna order. It's quicker. Oh, it isn't quicker, but it means I don't have to leave. So I think I will do that. Oh. How are you anyways, chat? Good, I'm glad. I'm sobbing, but good. Aww. It's okay. It's fine, chat. It's fine. No! This place just closed. This place that I wanted to order from just closed. Aw. Rip. Really tired because it's 2 a.m. but alright. Aw. Well, I hope you are not too tired. I could just get some loaded fries. But I need some vegan ones. You're in school right now? Wait, is there people in school? What time is it for you? Nine p.m.? You're not in school at 9 p.m. 9 a.m.? 1 p.m. in New Zealand. Oh shit. Oh shit, I'm sorry, chat. It's school break. Aw. Well, hello. I am right now just getting some food. I honestly don't know what I want though. Maybe I won't. I can't decide. Anyway, let's just try it. Alright, Techno said. That's okay. So how the hell are we getting out here? That's okay. So how the hell are we getting out of here? He still had a score to settle and a prince to bury after all. Wilbur nodded wordlessly towards the blushing back scar in the air. Oh, said Techno. You have got to be kidding me. It's safe, Wilbur said. Say that again without looking so green and I might believe you. It's a cut, rough, really, Filza said expositantly. Of course it would not be a very comfortable experience. Oh, you love my nails? Thank you. Wilbur scoffed. It felt like having my innards rearranged by a very excitable toddler. Oh my god, he heaved a resigned sigh as he faced the cut. I guess I'll go fast. He threw a look at the other two behind him. See you on the other side then? I'll follow soon, said Techno. Don't get lost again. There's some hard words in there. I just can't read right now. Wilbur gave him a mocking salute before falling into the void. It swallowed him whole. Techno watched him disappear with a sinking feeling in his gut. Before a heartbeat had even passed, he was already moving towards, intending to follow behind Wilbur as he'd promised. He would not let him out of his sight again. But before Techno could step through, a hand closed around his arm and pulled him back. He turned towards Filza, and complaint already on his lips before he noticed the somber look on the other god's face. He really did look different. He was quieter somehow, and yet brighter, and at the same time, like a young star silently basking in the newfound brilliance. Techno, Filza said, we need to talk. Wilbur was being unmade. That was it. That was what it was. As he fell through the black, spiraling between what was real and what was imagined, drifting in the space between lie and truth, he felt himself being pulled apart and being pulled back together. Born and then unborn and then reborn and unmade. Father had called it the crash, but that wasn't quite true. It was crashing and flying and crashing again, the euphoria of flight equaled by the pain of collapse. It was agony. It was dawn. It was over. He hit the ground, breathed in, breathed out. The air tasted bitter like ash, like the dust on a guitar case sitting unopened for years. His ears ringing, with his vision blurring, there was nothing beyond the feel of cold snow under him, coarse and biting. His muddled mind could grasp no thought other than, I need a blanket. He spat snow and blood out from his mouth and struggled upright, managing to get to his knees before he fell back again. That fight there was left in his body fleeing as his vision finally cleared, as he realized he was watching the end of the world. The sky was red, the city was burning. Fissures arced across the ground like lighting, charms leading straight to the underworld. As Wilbur looked on, the earth shook again, and more cracks spread, one breaking open just feet away from him. Oh, shit, Wilbur thought, scrambling back, his heart in his throat. Shit. The only structure that remained relatively intact was the church. And standing at its bell tower, at the eye of the storm, was none other than Dream. He didn't seem to notice Wilbur's appearance. How could he? In the same way that giants paid no heed to ants, the god had bigger affairs to tend than a single mortal standing in the wreckage of the only universe he had ever known. Dream paced around the circumference of the bell, trailing a hand on its bronze surface, only pausing whenever another earthquake hit. It took Wilbur a few dizzy beats to realize he was causing it. With a tilt of his head and flick of his finger, the green god was slowly breaking the world apart, remaking it into another version, another stage. Suka! Stop! Wilbur barely registered the thought of another person falling beside him. What the? Wilbur turned to watch Techno blink groggily at the scene before them, waking from a dream and straight into a nightmare. He already looked so exhausted, pink hair tied loosely back from a face that had seen better days. He was so pale. The only color, thank you so much for the sub, I appreciate it. The only color on his face, the dark lines under his eyes. How long had they been fighting? It felt like years. It was only hours. What's going on? Techno croaked. The apocalypse, Wilbur returned. Techno groaned as he fell back against the ground, burying his face in his arms. 5 minutes, he said. Let me have 5 goddamn minutes without having to deal with this. We don't have much time. We don't have that much time, Father said. Wilbur raised his head to see his father touching down on the ground beside him, soundless as the night. His eyes scanned the broken city around him before settling on Techno and Wilbur's discarded weapons. And because Wilbur could never catch a fucking break, they were sitting leagues away on a slice of earth separated by a dozen crossing lines of fissures. Oh, I think we can change the music now, chat. Because we're back at Earth. Oh. How's this one? Maybe? Do we ever have enough time? Techno's voice was muffled by the snow. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Wilbur groaned in sympathy, even as he accepted Father's offered hand, and offered even Even as he accepted Father's offered hand and got to his feet, he reached down and grabbed... Where's the music? Oh, it like builds up. Okay. There we go. It just didn't start. He reached down and grabbed the back of Techno. Grabbed the back of Techno's tunic, hauling him up so that Techno leaned on him while he leaned on his father. The three of them, exhausted in all sense of the world, watched as Dream continued breaking and shattering everything that no longer fit whatever story he wanted to tell next. I'll get your weapons, Father said, and Wilbur expected him to fly away to retrieve them, but instead he simply snapped his fingers. And Wilbur's bow and sword and Techno's trident and chain chip-chattered at their feet. Wilbur glanced with shock at his father. When did you learn that nifty little trick? Must have picked it up somewhere. Can I not speak? Father muttered as Techno wordlessly re-aimed himself. Wilbur bent to retrieve his bow and rapier, surprised to find that his quiver was filled once more with new arrows, with gleaming obsidian feathers as fletching. These gods, Wilbur thought, I'll never understand their silly games. This is it then, Techno said, as he spun his trident idly between his fingers. This ends here. Everything ends here. How do we do this? Wilbur asked. The last time we think we got him cornered, he just shoved us into some other realm and went on his merry way. I won't give him the chance this time, Father said sternly. Sweat was bedding on Techno's forehead despite the cold, but his words were steady when he said, we'll be your support. We'll be your support, Phil. Now go. Not yet, Father said, turning to Wilbur. He lifted his cloak and reached into his inner pocket, pulling out a silver necklace. He pressed it into Wilbur's palm and leaned in to whisper into Wilbur's ears. Find what is scared to you and never let go. If you only take any advice from your old man, let it be that. Why does this feel like you're saying goodbye? Wilbur whispered back, curling his fingers around the necklace. Father stepped back with a small, sad smile. I'm not, he said. It's just in case. Just in case? Wilbur demanded. In case of what? Another one shouldered shrug. Worst case scenario. Wilbur placed the necklace into his pocket. Sure, he said. Let's lie to ourselves. It should be easy. We've been doing this for years, haven't we? Father blinked and looked as if he were about to say something else. But then the earth trembled again. A harsh laugh cut through the cold air. The three of them turned to see that the green god had finally caught sight of them. He stood at the edge of the bell tower, balanced on the balls of his feet, as if the dizzying height was no consequence to him. Even from so far below, Wilbur could see the jagged line of a smile carved into his face. Hello, he called out. Didn't expect you back so soon, I admit. He spread his arms to take in the chaos around them. But I guess destruction is more fun when there are witnesses. Wilbur closed his hands around the hilt of his rapier. Despite the ache in his soul, he was ready. With Techno on the side and his father on the other, there was little else he needed. The northern winds whistled past them, and if Wilbur listened carefully, he could almost hear the song they were trying to sing. There were no words left to be said. They had done this 1,000 times before. They took off, Phil to the skies and Techno and Will were rushing across the ruined grounds. Phil got to the tower first, but the other two would not be far behind. They leaped over chasm after chasm, skidding on snow and falling to their knees, but still moving forwards. Heading towards the church, every jump rattled Techno's bones and made him want to cry out, but he pushed it all down. The world was being torn apart by an all-powerful, bored little shit. Techno had no right to complain about something as inconsequential as a potentially sprained ankle. And then, suddenly, it wasn't inconsequential. It was an easy jump. He could have made it, should have made it, but instead, he came up short, an inch shy to safety. Techno fell quietly. There was a sharp tug in his shoulder, and his shoulder almost popped out of his socket with his plunge. Can you hear it? Sorry. With his plunge was abruptly halted. He looked up, legs dangling in open air, and found Wilbur leaning over the edge with his hands around Techno's wrist, his only lifeline. Gods, Wilbur cursed, struggling with Techno's weight. Pull yourself up, Techno! Can you even hear the music? It's a very quiet song. There we go. That's also not a good song. Not a fitting song. Let me find a fitting song, chat. We could go with that one, actually. Okay. Techno's boots scrambled for purchase against the chasm face. He could feel Wilbur's hands slipping, but Techno knew Wilbur would more readily let both of them fall than let go. That was how Techno knew he'd already found family again. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, his left foot found a steady spot to carry most of his weight. With some awkward maneuvering, Techno managed to haul himself over the edge, breathing heavily with his hands on his knees, but on solid ground once more. What the hell? Wilbur demanded. You and your grand speeches about never losing me again? But did you ever stop and ask if I could afford to lose you? Get a fucking grip! Techno pushed hair out of his eyes and blinked slowly at the furious king. Okay, Techno said quietly. I'm sorry. Are you alright then? Wilbur asked, anger quickly evaporating into concern. We have to get help. We have to go help Father. I don't think he needs our help, Techno thought, squinting up at the bell tower. From this angle he couldn't see much, but he could hear it all, the crash of steel on steel and the distant thuds of two godly beings absolutely trying their best to kill the other. I'm alright, Techno assured. And even if Wilbur didn't seem to believe him, they had no other choice but to soldier on. They were off again, leaping from one broken chunk of earth to the other, albeit a bit more cautiously, constantly looking over their shoulders to make sure the other had made it safely. When they finally made it to the foot of the bell tower, the pain in Techno's ankle had reached a boiling point. Only intensified when Wilbur pushed the tower door open, and there they were met with a staircase spiraling into the sky. I hate this, Techno declared. I hate every aspect of this, and I would like to quit and be humble and be a humble farmer far from here. Wilbur stared at him, giving him only seconds to follow through on his words. Are you done? Wilbur said. Because in case you haven't noticed, the end of all things is currently being orchestrated with right above our heads. I regret meeting you. Wilbur snorted and he started up. Why can I not talk? And he started up the stairs. You say that as if it isn't your dry humor that rubbed off on me. They took the steps 2 at a time, round and round, until Techno couldn't remember life before the climb. It wasn't until they were halfway there when Techno's knees finally gave up, and he slumped against the brick wall, panting and biting back a scream of frustration. He was holding them back. It was the most important battle of his damn life, and he was holding them back. Wilbur, standing a few steps up from Techno, looked back with furrowed brows. What's wrong? He asked. You look pale. This isn't like you. He took in the sweat dripping from Techno's face, the exhaustion evident in trembling shoulders and liquid limbs. Techno? You're right, Techno murmured. Too tired to care about what he was saying. I'm not myself. I'm not even a fraction what I used to be. I hate this fragile body, and it's all whining, and it's all petty demands. He looked up, met Wilbur's eyes, willing him to understand, because there was no way in hell he could ever speak the words himself. He didn't have the vocabulary for it. I hate being this weak, Wilbur. Wilbur's mouth fell open in a silent oh, as realization finally hit him. Before, all this would have been effortless. The leaping, the running, the climbing. Something as small as a sprained ankle or healing stab wound would have been no hindrance at all. Just little details to shake off like bothersome bugs. But that was before. This was now. Techno, Wilbur whispered. You're mortal. It had been written in an ancient script. In a book that looked exactly like all the others in the forgotten library, heavy bound and dust covered, Philza had flipped gingerly through it, afraid of what the wrong move could turn the fragile paper into ash, and had found the words on the last pages. You seek power, reader, it had said, but all things come with a price. Power or price? Divinity for divinity. If you wish to be God among gods, one must be the vessel, the other the sacrifice. Hello, raiders. Oh, thank you for the raid, Rizantriel. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good stream. Welcome, everyone. We're reading Passerine right now. No, I'm not crying, chat. I have a cold. I'm not crying. I'm not crying, chat. I have a cold. I'm not crying, I swear. Kaya, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. And the green god, no, Filza had promised it. Filza had promised it would be the last resort. Only until push came to shove, Techno had said, and the green god had definitely shoved. And so Filza had pulled Techno back, and the two of them had talked. One god to another, for the last time. They had both known it was time, just as they had known that the first day of the battlefield, of ice and snow, arrows flying overhead, and both of them lit from within by divine fire that their roads had crossed, and there was no going back. Techno, blood god and emperor. I'm gonna make the music a little bit louder. Had offered his scarred hand to Filza, angel of death and god of freedom, and they had clasped each other's fingers like old friends did after a long separation. For a moment there was only the two of them, in that forest of dreams, and when Filza whispered the ancient words, it almost sounded like a solemn prayer. A prayer to the god Techno used to be, and the god Filza was becoming. Towards the end, Techno's hand had betrayed his pain. It shook just a bit, as his veins burned gold, turning him into gilded patchwork, half mortal, half god, his very soul caught in the crossfire between mortality and divinity. His breaths came quick and labored, and still Filza murmured, slipping silent apologies between the primordial spell. When the final word was said, Techno had fallen to his knees before Filza. A wicked reversal of fortunes, and he did not let go. Technoblade forsook his godhood without protest. There was barely a struggle, barely a scream of agony. It had been his sacrifice to make, and he would be damned if he'd let himself regret it. He had wrestled with martyrdom and won. When Techno stood again, he was human, simple and breakable, with numbered years and numb hands. Inside him there was a hollow pit where his godhood used to rest. He was going to make a landfill out of it. And Filza was awake. Now he stood in a bell tower overlooking a ruined city. Fires ranged until the horizon, burning away homes and streets that once teemed with easy life. Families and friends gathered in bunches like sweet-smelling bouquets. But like flowers unaware of the gardener's plucking hands, they had existed in the shadow of a being too large to comprehend, their lives already decided for them. All their tragedies and loves, their hopes and their secrets laid into predetermined places on the green god's mosaic. But that would end today, because Filza was his antithesis, and he was going to set everybody free. The bell tolled as he and Dream continued their deadly dance around the tower, swords meeting and then unmeeting. Dream must have sensed the change. He must have seen it in the way Filza moved, taking each step with utmost confidence that the ground would meet him and not the other way around. He would have felt it in the renewed strength behind Filza's blows. He must have known Filza was still holding back. For the first time since their encounter, the green god had the wits to finally be uneaved. One mistake was all it took, a misstep in the eons old waltz. The green god swung too early, his sword cutting through air as Filza simply ducked out on the way. The bell shredded as Dream's blade bit into the bronze and stuck there. As Dream tried to pull it free, Filza kicked it at his knees and sent him spinning against one of the pillars, holding up the tower's roof, unarmed. Dream stumbled against the pillar, nearly topping over the edge of the tower, and before he could regain his balance, Filza swung at him. Dream managed to duck with just in time, but Filza's sword cut through the pillar behind him as easy as a hot knife through butter. The pillar buckled and fell apart, and the roof of the tower began leaning, almost halfway to carving on itself. The green god whistled as he jumped back from Filza's advance. Listen, Filza. How do I say that? Listen, Filza, listen. How do I do Desperate Dream? I haven't had Desperate Dream yet. We'll see. We'll find out, chat. We'll find out yet. I'm done listening to you. Filza swung again, this time managing to nick Dream's forearm. Brilliant red blood ran from the cut, but did not heal. Dream looked down at his wounded arm, his brows furrowed with confusion. Why did that hurt? He asked. No one in particular. He raised his eyes to Phil as his confusion turned to fury. What have you done to me? The very thing you tried to keep me from doing, said Filza, raising his sword above his head. Now hold still, Dream. Let me take everything away from you as you took everything away from me. The green god made to realize his hand, perhaps to conjure himself a new sword. Made to raise his hand, or attempt to throw Filza into another dream. Filza's hand shot out, gripping Dream's wrist and twisting. He leaned in to watch the other god's discomfort turn into pain, turn into panic, as he struggled to free himself from Filza's crushing hold. Little spider, Filza whispered, caught in your own web. You think this phases me? Dream demanded, still trying to pull his wrist away. Do you think I'm afraid of you? The angel of death looked at the green god with the eyes of a son taken too soon. Yes, he said, I think you are. Dream snarled, an animal cornered. You forget, you've tried this before. You always failed. Always. But that was before I came to realize what you were. Filza made sure Dream could see every inch of his expression, every depleted line, every mark the long years had etched into his skin. You would have us think that you're doing all this, the rewrites, the infinite loop, just for the fun of it? But you don't really have the luxury of including yourself, do you? Because you are afraid. Every second of every day of every life, you are afraid. You have known me since you were made. You have known since you first breath that I was the only creature capable of breaking you. And before I could even try, before you gave me any reason to, you ran away. You pretended it was all some silly little game to keep your heart from exploding out of your chest with fear, and you ran. You sculpted worlds, rewrote histories just to keep me from seeing you squirm. Because you're a coward. That's what you are, Dream. You're a God's damned coward. Take that back, the green god whispered. Take that back right now. Make me, challenged Filza. Oh wait, you can't. They were equal forces. Once upon a time, the spider and the songbird, control and freedom, the two oldest powers in the universe, the first of the gods, maintaining a delicate balance until one tipped the scale. Filza was merely tipping it back. You bought yourself some time, said Filza. Eons of it. But the clock is ticking, and there's nowhere else to run. This game is over. Dream was breathing heavily, his emerald eyes wide. You can't hurt me, he said. But you can. Oh, you can hurt me, he said. But you can't kill me. You can't. That's not how we do this. We'll always be hunting each other. You have the upper hand now, but not forever. You're right. Filza loosened his hold on Dream. I don't know how to do Dream right now, because Dream's desperate, and I haven't planned for Dream to be desperate. This voice is not made to be desperate, chat. Filza loosened his hold on Dream, allowing him to step away. The green god gave him a look of mistrustful confusion as he rubbed his wrist where Filza's hand had left.
Hello.
Hey, hello, Records from Ruth. Thank you for the 10,000 bits. I appreciate it. I hope you're well. Where Filza's hand left scorch marks. I can't kill you. If I did, you'd simply be reborn, and the chase will continue. I know that now. And I also know that what I have to do. He glanced over Dream's shoulder, and the other god turned on his heel to follow Filza's line of sight. When he finally saw what Filza meant, he whirled around with an insidious, almost fearful expression. You can't be serious, Dream said, voice trembling. You can't be. Then, regaining a bit of confidence, he said, no, you really can't be. Because I just break out. I can carve my way out, little by little. Oh, I just got a cramp in my leg. Not if you have someone watching you, Filza said simply. What little hope the green god still had died in his eyes. You're an idiot, he declared. With equal parts disbelief and alarm, he moved towards Filza, grabbing fistfuls of his tunic and shaking him. It would be the closest to begging he would stop to. But do you have any idea what I would lose, what you would lose? All things come with a price, Filza said, surprised by the sudden burn of tears in his eyes. And I pay it, so they don't have to. I am done running away from my problems. I am done begging the stars for answers. I bought the stars low, Dream, and they will do my bidding for me. Why does it feel like you're saying goodbye? Wilbur had asked. Because he was. He'd said his farewells, even if he was the only one who would truly understand. In hindsight, 10 days or 10 years from now, that Filza was leaving Wilbur to him, and him to Wilbur. Behind the green god, far below, in the middle of the broken earth, was a cut in the universe, a jagged gate to a place of unmaking. It stood, waiting for a green-eyed god and his keeper, a prison of infinite void for the two loneliest gods on earth. Filza grabbed Dream's wrist once more, manacless of flesh and blood. It's been you and me since the beginning, Dream, Filza said slowly, and it'll be me and you in the end. Father? Filza froze. What are you doing? What are you doing? Wilbur repeated. Filza turned slowly towards the tower's threshold, where Wilbur stood with one hand on the jamb and the other one around Techno's shoulders. Wilbur was the only force keeping Techno upright at the moment. By the look on Filza's face, he must have expected Techno to weigh Wilbur down more with the notably on his mortality, ignorant to the fact that Techno's sheer stubbornness was more than enough fuel to get him up that tortuous flight of stairs. Sure, Techno felt as if each step had been hewn into the damn tower with every intent to antagonize him specifically, but there were no can't speak. But he was here now, witnessing Filza, about to make another undoubtedly big mistake, and that was all that mattered. Yes, Dream said, all former smugness wiped clean off his face. Tell him exactly what you're doing, Filza, where you're about to go. Shut up, Wilbur snapped, his eyes never waving from his father. This doesn't concern you, you noisy piece of shit. Father! Filza, a god among gods among men, flinched at the harshness in Wilbur's tone. What did he mean? Where are you going? Coffee raid! Thank you so much for the raid, Coffee! I appreciate it. Welcome, welcome. We're reading Passerine. Welcome, everyone. I hope you had a good stream. Hello, hello. Thank you. When Filza didn't respond, a look of horrified fury dawned on Wilbur's face. You're leaving, Wilbur said, as if the act of saying it might make it false. You're actually leaving me again. Well, Filza began, loosening his grip on Dream just for 1 second. Techno knew a thing or two about stupid mistakes. That was one of them. The moment Filza's hands slackened, Dream pulled free and was gone, taking to the skies on his invisible wings. It was almost comical, really, to think that the god that had stood over them so arrogantly just hours before would now scramble to escape the second everyone's back were turned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the bless yous. If it was Filza's assassination had been the cause of the shift, then Techno would gladly sacrifice his immortality 10 times over just to see the green bastard scared shitless. Sorry. But before he could even lift one foot off the tower floor, Wilbur and Techno had already taken their positions. It took 4 seconds. 1. Yeah. Wilbur knocked an obsidian fletched arrow into his bow, drawing his arm back as he aimed towards the lone figure in the burning sky. 2. The linked iron chains of Techno's whip rattled as it... I need better music, chat. I really do. As it unfurled from his hand like a metal ribbon. He took one end of it and spun it in a vicious circle, the wind whirling around him. lifting his hair from his face. He was almost delirious with pain, and he did not have a fraction of the strength he used to have. But if Wilbur was still standing, then Techno would be right beside him. 3. Wilbur breathed in, out. His hands were steady and sure. The king, he was a king, and he would surrender to no god. 4. Wilbur let the arrow fly. It sung through the air, sung past the green god's head, not close enough to make him bleed, but close enough to make him pause. It was all they needed. It was that moment of his foolish hesitation. Technoblade swung his whip out like a fisherman casting a hook into the deep dark. It blazed like a comet in reverse, arcing up into the shattered sky instead of towards the burning ground. Justice made metal. It caught around the heel of a god and made him mortal in his fear. And Techno had any godliness left in himself. He used it all in one last action of retribution. He had known, of course, that even the weakest human was able to do impossible things, godly things, in moments of panic. He had heard stories of fathers lifting whole trees of their children, of people standing between their lovers and wild wolves. He had witnessed soldiers fighting to their bitter ends, all for a king that did not love them and a kingdom that would forget their names the moment a new battle begun. I need to clean my nose again. I'm not crying! I have a cold, chat. Stop assuming I'm crying! Anyway. Oh god, where were we? A young boy had stood before him in a wisteria-covered pavilion and asked to be taught the art of war to keep his brother safe. Humans, Techno thought. We're a stubborn bunch, aren't we? And he drew the spider down from the stars. You don't have to lie, we're all crying. If I had a zoom, I would zoom right now. I need a zoom. Oh, chat, I should get a zoom. Anyway. Dream hurtled back towards them, an angel falling and falling still, and Techno swung him straight towards the bell. There was a cacophony as the bell's binding snapped and it crashed into the floor, still ringing, still singing. In its dented surface lay the god in response, blood stained his golden hair. Unconscious, defeated at last, Techno let out a shaky breath. Well, he said, that was easy, and promptly passed out. Wilbur let his bow clatter to the ground and caught Techno before he could follow it. Laughter exploded out of Wilbur as he pulled Techno's limp body against him. We did it! He exhaled against Techno's hair, looking down at the god lying broken in detent bronze. We actually fucking did it, Techno! He shook Techno. Techno, hey! We did it! There was no response. Back to this. Wilbur looked up in a panic and found his father eyes on him. His father's wary eyes on him. No. The frenzied euphoria of an unexpected victory died swiftly on Wilbur's lips as he pulled Techno closer to him, tucking his warm, fragile, mortal body into the cradle of his arms. Techno's chin digging painfully into Wilbur's shoulder. Wilbur was suddenly very aware of the extent of the damage on him. Wounded shoulders and a knife in the back, courtesy of Wilbur himself. A killing blow for you wouldn't be a scratch for me, Techno had said. But he'd said it when he was immortal and untouchable. Techno, Wilbur asked again, shaking him lightly, unable to think of a word without his best friend. His newfound mortality should have given them years, or at least together. Not minutes, not seconds. Techno, this isn't funny anymore. He looked up at his father. Tell him it isn't funny anymore. The silence was tenderous. And then, in its wake, there was a muffled groan. 5 minutes. Just 5 goddamn minutes. Wilbur pulled back to see that Techno's eyes were wide open. If I weren't so sure you were halfway to hell already, Wilbur said slowly, I would expedite the process right now. Does hell offer a hot meal and a warm bed? Techno asked. If so, please send me there. I deserve it. Wilbur shoved Techno off him, unsure whether to laugh or cry or scream when he turned to his father. He looked just as lost. That was, Father said as Techno righted himself, a very shit thing to do, you little bastard. Oh! The Weymouth fled instantly from Techno's face, chased to unbridled anger as he whirled on his father. You want to speak to me of doing very shit things? Father flinched, but looked as if he had already expected the outburst. His blue eyes slid to Wilbur, and they looked so much like Tommy's in his final moments that Wilbur did not know whether to look away or memorize them. Father's hand around Dream's wrist. Dream's panic flight. The dark doorway into a realm between realms still standing open far below in the shadow of the bell tower. You're actually leaving me again, Wilbur had accused him before they were swept in the dramatics of Dream's escape and their presumed triumph. What triumph was there to celebrate when Father had not proven him wrong? The cold settled back into Wilbur's bones. Where are you going? Wilbur demanded. Well, Father began. Wait. Oh, okay, I thought we just like were at the wrong place, but we're not, okay. Father began running a shaking hand through his hair. You were not supposed to be here for this. He met Techno's glare. Neither of you were. Techno crossed his arms. The mortal who had chained a god. If he had given anyone else the look he was giving Father, they would have withered away into dust. And what exactly is this, Phil? Techno asked, his voice hoarse. The angel of death did not frown to make excuses. He simply told them what Wilbur had always wanted from him. The truth. I'm going away. Far, far away. Philza continued, unable to stop now that he had started. Maybe it was the way that Wilbur was looking at him, open and undefended, as if he no longer feared but instead expected his betrayal. Maybe it was the way Techno stood protectively in front of him, as if Philza was someone Wilbur would needed protection from. Maybe it was that despite their earlier tearless farewell, deep down, Philza knew it would come down to this. No subterfuge, no vague remarks, just honesty, this time, no matter how harsh and painful. I'll take Dream to a place where he can't hurt you, can't hurt anyone ever again. And I'm going to lock the door behind me and throw away the key. It's the only way to make sure that I can't come back. He can't come back. Sorry, I can't read. The only way? Wilbur asked. The only way to end the reign of an all-powered deity just so happens to involve you leaving me in the dust for... How many times is it now, Filza? How many times are you going to leave me before you even say a proper fucking goodbye? We already... Don't give me that shit, Wilbur snapped, his brown eyes furious. He'd gotten his eyes from his mother, the fury from his father. A few words of wisdom and a piece of fucking jewelry does not count as a goodbye. In any goddamned universe, I fucking asked you if this was goodbye. Goodbye then, said Filza. Is that what you wanted? Do you want me to say the words? Do you want me to tell you that I would give up air and life and open skies if it meant that I got to stay with you? But if that wasn't... But if you want honesty, Wilbur, here it is. You know the face of sacrifice well. You have already made the calculations in your head and you already know this is the right call, the only call. You already know this will hurt like hell, but it will be a necessary hurt. This is my blue valley, Wilbur. He saw the words land, felt it as if he'd taken a dagger into his own heart. Wilbur had the look of a man standing at the gallows, but it was not his execution. It was the tortured sorrow in his eyes, torn between grieving and refusing to believe there was anything to grieve at all. That was from Filza too. Though it all, Techno had stood in his stoic silence, content on making Filza feel the weight of his anger without having to say a word. But now he'd opened his mouth to speak. But it wasn't a demand or a daring remark or a sharp reproach that fell out in quiet, hesitant syllables. It was a question. Wilbur, can I see that necklace? His anguish momentarily clouded by confusion, Wilbur reached into his pocket and pulled out Filza's last gift, the only remnant that would remain of him. Sitting on Wilbur's palm, dangling from an iron chain, was a single bright green emerald. I'm sorry, Filza began. I'm sorry that leaving you is the only way I can save you. I'm sorry that you both fought so hard, so long, just to say goodbye again. I'm sorry that I can't be there for the aftermath. I'm sorry that there's too much left unsaid between us. I'm sorry. I was too much of a coward to say this before, but I hope I can make it up to you now. He tried for a smile, even as tears blurred his vision, turning everything into hazy smuggles. Techno, will I? And then arms were going around him, pulling him into a warm embrace. For a moment there was only a tangle of limbs and 3 beating, broken hearts, indiscriminate of one another. Clarity came in bitter and sweet waves. It was Wilbur's face, buried in his left shoulder, Techno's arms around them both. It was Techno's foot on his toes and the pommel of Wilbur's rapier digging into his gut. It was tragic and it was clumsy. It was goodbye. It won't be forever, Filza promised through his sobs. I swear on you both I will find a way back to you someday. There will be nothing to fear anymore. And I'll find you again, even if it takes me eons. None of them said what they were already thinking. Wilbur didn't have eons, and neither did Techno now. But they knew what he meant anyway, and they believed him. Someday, They would hang on to that promise. They would take it to their graves. If there's one thing, Wilbur said, pulling back to look Filza in the eyes, that I want you to know, I forgive you. His face fractured into a billion different emotions. I forgive you, Dad. Thank you, Phil whispered. Thank you, my boy. And Techno only had his silence. But it said more than Filza could in 1,000 years. He stepped back from them, his oldest son and his oldest friend. When Techno began swaying his feet, Wilbur wordlessly wrapped his arms around the former gods, and they stood there together, leaning on each other. Filza's hut was free. He gave them a nod. Techno looked away to wipe furiously at his eyes. Filza had to stifle a laugh, stubborn until the very end, aren't you, my friend? It was time. The god of freedom turned towards the boy sleeping on the broken bell, sleeping, or waiting, or dreaming, whichever explanation would hurt least for him. Filza gathered the green god into his arms, as he had once borne the body of his youngest son at his deathbed, as he had once carried Wilbur to bed when he was smaller, and the world was only the hallway from the library to his childhood bedroom. He walked to the very edge of the tower with only a young king and a new mortal to mourn him. He spread his wings, obsidian feathers gleaming in the dying fires of this last city he could ever fail to protect. And then he flew. He did not look back. The wind was at his face, cold and cutting, but he had never tasted anything sweeter. When he began his descent, straight towards the gate to his final fate, he felt the green god stir slightly in his arms. A child, disturbed from a beautiful dream. He might have whispered a name, but it was lost to the air. God. Such a big word for such a small thing. They were the beginning, and they were the end. Prologue and epilogue. The void rushed towards them. Unofficial Tumble Raid! Hi everyone! Hello, unofficial Tumble Raid! Tumble Raid? Sort of. Hi! We're reading Passerine. We're almost at the end right now. And after that we're gonna play some Life is Strange, but not the new one, the old one, because the new one we're playing on the main right now, and I figured it would be fun to simultaneously play the old one. So yeah, I hope you had a good stream. I know we played Jackbox. I hope that was fun. Hello everyone. Hello. Anyway, I'm a little bit sick. I have a cold. Bumblebee, thank you so much for the prime. I appreciate it. Thank you. I have a little bit of a cold. So I'm not crying, just so you know. Liz Barra, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hello everyone. Hello. The mood is going to change very quickly because we're sad right now. Chat and me are sad right now, guys, because we're reading sad story. We're reading Passerine. After that, we're actually before we play Life is Strange, we're gonna watch the saddest animation from Passerine, just so we like understand the whole thing. But let me clean my nose real quick. Nice. Anyway, let's continue. Thank you for the sub, Hazir. I appreciate it. The void rushed towards them. Filza closed his eyes. It was better this way. He would get to control the darkness. It was his call, his terms, his sacrifice. I'm sorry, Tommy, he thought, one last tear slipping down the ancient face. But I'll be seeing you soon. They entered the void together. The gate closed behind them, and the universe shifted.
2-month moment, much love. I just finished passerine this week.
Let's go. You're gonna finish it again with me. Hopefully. The shift was felt by every stone. It was felt by every rock and every blade of grass, every flowing river and every tree looking over a lonely house at the end of a long road, its chimney overgrown with ivy. It was felt by every beast in the forest and every fish in the sea and every bird now grieving a fellow wanderer of the skies. It was felt by those awake and those hunting and those deep in hibernation and those spinning in their webs from branch to branch, creating connections where once there was only open air. It was felt by the deer caught between the wolf's jaw, its final moments extended into eternity as the entire world, the entire universe, held its breath. It was felt by every warrior in combat, every monarch in their gilded thorns, every smith with their cheeks warm from the fire of their forgers, every child stumbling through their mother's gardens, every painter seated at their easel, every sailor at sea, every traveler on their way home. It was felt by an old neighbor looking after the shop of the kind girl, who has always been so kind to him. A sign stood at the door, closed indefinitely. It said, "Oh, that's me," I think. But the neighbor knew it would be it closed forever. And still he'd come, day after day. His wife was gone, and so was the kind girl. But the flowers, oh, they still needed watering. It was felt by a god in a valley. Beside him was a freshly dug grave with only a sword of pure obsidian to mark his place among the dead. The god had always known that he would one day stand alone. Once there were 3, and now there was none. He'd lost one of them to love and another to fear, and some days he wondered if there was any difference. When pain always came in the wake of love, when every devotion led to a burial ground, when every dream was a nightmare sleeping, would it be worth loving at all? Yes, said the dirt underneath his fingernails, testimony to his lovely grave digging. Yes, said the wind coming from the north. Yes, said first drop of rain striking his cheek like a cold reminder to seek shelter, like a gentle kiss from 2 lost friends. Yes, it would. It was felt by a soldier knocking on the door of a home he could no longer recognize. When his sister opened the door, he swore she didn't recognize him either. But then she threw her arms around him, sobbing into his dirty shirt, and they fell onto the wooden floors that carried the weight of their shared childhoods. In its scratches and dents, he held her and cried, and was known. It was felt by a young king standing on a bell tower at the heart of a city of snow and ashes. A green stone gleamed at his throat, heavy with a history he would someday be told when its last storyteller was ready. It was felt by the storyteller. The wheel was broken at their feet. They were free. They were free. They were free. Wilbur leaned his heavy head against Techno's shoulder. "Let's go home," he whispered. Techno nodded. "Home," he repeated, as if the word was a new discovery. As he watched an aurora blazed of life above them, a symphony of red and golds and greens twisting through the heavens. An impossibility of color, nothing short of divine magic. The sky was singing. Techno turned to the king, but his face was upturned in aglow. A child truly, captivated by the pretty lights, the heaviness of his own heart, momentarily forgotten as he looked up the brilliance of the world his father had saved. The curtains fell on two brothers illuminated. They buried him under the weeping willow, and they replanted the garden around him, one rose bush at a time. Wilbur leaned against the simple gravestone as he tuned his guitar. It bore a name and the only titles that had ever mattered to him: brother and son. "I'm not nervous," Wilbur said as he continued tinkering with the instrument on his lap. He flinched as a rather discordant note played before continuing. "I mean, I shouldn't be. Whatever happens today, I would deserve it. That's how justice works, right?" Finally satisfied with his strings, Wilbur strummed a few notes before he settled back against the grass. "But I didn't come here to talk about that. I wanted to play you a song." He grinned at the sunlight streaming through the branches. "I finally finished it. It took a while. A full year, drawled an ultra-familiar voice, of banging around the music room and threatening to suffocate me in my sleep if I interfered with his artistic process. Wilbur glared good-naturedly at the man coming towards him, a violin case in hand. Techno had grown into mortality better than Wilbur had expected. There were still times that Techno forgot he was human. He has human needs and human limitations, but Wilbur was there. As he always had been and always would be, to remind him. Other than the times he forgot to eat on a regular schedule or thought to spar with royal guards that would no longer be easy targets for him, he had thrived. He'd begun filling on his tunics, and his sounds from the final confrontation were now just a part of his tapestry of scars. Settling on the other side of the gravestone, anyone looking out from the windows of the castle would only see the head advisor and right hand of the king, with his old-fashioned poofy sleeves and pink head braided down his back, silently plucking at his violin. "I'm just saying," Wilbur said, that whatever the verdict, we'd accept it," Techno finished, brows scrunched in serious contemplation at his instrument. "That doesn't mean you're not allowed to be scared. That's why we're here, aren't we?" He threw a grin at Wilbur across the strings. "We're getting you a distraction." "I'm not scared," Wilbur said, and it was the truth. "I know there's a chance that the past 2 years of attoning might not be enough, and I know it will never be enough." Sorry, I need to blow my nose again. I am not crying, Chad. I am not crying. Okay. I'm not scared, Wilbur said, and it was the truth. I know there's a chance that the past 2 years of atom might be enough, and I know it will never be enough. Then that's a good thing that you're not the one voting, Techno said simply. Voting? Oh no. Flashbacks. Techno said simply. It's the people's call, Wilbur. We don't have any say in the matter, for better or for worse. He trapped the end of his brows against the gravestone almost absently before raising it to his violin. At the end of the day, you're either king or you aren't. And if they decide the latter, then we'll go off into exile together. Exile? Oh no. And be twin fishermen in some little coast town somewhere. Or traveling birds. We could see the world together, you and I. I've already seen it, said Techno. But I suppose I wouldn't mind getting a second look. Wilbur laughed lightly. If that's our worst case scenario, then there's really nothing to fear, isn't there? In response, Techno began playing the first notes of a familiar melody. Soon, the lifting sound of his violin filled the garden, joined by distant birdsong, and the rustle of the wind through the creeping branches. It floated through the air, sharp and sweet, Techno's scarred fingers dancing across the fingerboards, with the expertise that cost him long nights and strings snapping against his skin. His brow wrung magic from the delicate instrument, so potent Wilbur almost missed his own cue. Wilbur began playing his guitar, an accompaniment and an addition, the undercurrent to the kneeing sound of Techno's violin. One note after another, an orchestra of two performing for an audience of ghosts, following a score they wrote themselves. It was a sad song. It was a happy song. It was a song of a summer day from years ago, tucked between faded memories, like a flower pressed between the pages of a heavy book, now dusted off and clean. It was a song of an artist mother and a warrior father and sons that were both. It was a song about the grass beneath Wilbur's feet and the sweet scent of flowers in his lungs. It was a song about war and ruin and grief and loss and the nightmares that still managed to take him by surprise even when he was awake and living anyway. It was a song about love and all the ways to say it: sacrifice, a cup of hot tea, waiting at his desk, chess during the lazy days, and music during the hard ones. Leaving and staying, remembering and forgetting. It was a song about family. Born to mate or found or rediscovered. It was Tommy's grave at his back, mother's unfinished painting, father's necklace around his neck. And when the final note echoed off into silence, there was no standing ovation, no vacuous applause, just the voices for the past 2 years, 6 months, and 3 days. There was only silence. It was the most beautiful sound. Wilbur quietly placed his guitar against Tommy's gravestone and turned to see Techno wordlessly returning his violin into its case. Everything had already been said. In the distance, the bells began to toll. It was time. Techno offered Wilbur a hand and pulled him to his feet. Together, they walked towards the judgment. Okay. 2 years ago, Techno had stood on a balcony and faced an army ready to die for him. "I promised you peace on my father's crown," he said, "and now I call you to war. This is nothing less than treason. Rest assured I will be facing consequences for it." And the soldiers had called instead for their enemies' heads. More than half of them were dead now, leaving family and friends behind, alive and safe but mourning. And if there was anyone who understood the need to find some place to put it down blame, it was Techno. There were no enemies left to defeat, no smiling gods, no imprisoned, no hostile armies crossing the valley. And that was where Techno and Wilbur were standing in the hazy sunlight, pouring in from the high windows of the very room where Wilbur had once been crowned. The room where he might have that crown taken from him for good. In front of them, seated in pews and on the floor, or leaning against the marble columns, or watching from the balconies, there were people that would determine their fates. 100 blinking eyes, all unreadable, settled on the king and the general that had won both battle and war at the cost of the very people they'd sworn to protect. Never mind that they'd saved them from a worse fate. Never mind that they'd ensured the safety of the kingdom for generations to come, or that they'd spent the past 2 years working on pulling the threads of their nation back together. Those were excuses that neither Wilbur nor Techno would ever use against their people. Before them were 4 jars, each towering over them. The one for each quadrant, west and east and south and north. For the past few months, those jars had combed through every inch and corner of the kingdom, from the highest mountains through the smallest villages, tucked into the deepest forests, to the cold, snow-covered tundra towns. Messengers had knocked on the door of each house, presenting each person within, be they child or adult, a decision. They would take a rock, any rock, be it for their own gardens or from their bewithered or chirped, or from their own gardens or from the riverbed, or chipped from the threshold of their houses, and place it in a jar if they believed the king and the general had not done enough to serve to the kingdom. A representative stood behind the jar, ready to tip it over, ready to count. Enough votes and Wilbur would step down from the throne and Techno would go with him, and they'd live the rest of their mortal lives in exile, far from the kingdom they had bled and fought and almost lost their brother for. Oh, and also lost their father for. Techno gazed at Wilbur. Despite his earlier posturing, Techno could tell Wilbur was one tug away from unraveling. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Techno, trying to look as calm and stoic for his people, spine straight and eyes ahead. Only Techno could see the apprehension behind them. He loved his kingdom. He loved its people. It wasn't just his father's kingdom or his mother's or Tommy's. He'd given everything of himself into it. And it was his own flesh and blood. It was no longer a chore or something he had to succeed to earn a distant father's approval. It was the soldiers that had fought beside him in the valley. It was the 100 people that had been willing to bring down a mountain on their foes and on themselves. It was the scars on his skin and his helpless nights, and his pride and his home and his responsibility. He was born for this, stones and all. A judge draped in white robes and called for attention, as if the room had not been mind-numbingly quiet for the past half an hour. Citizens of our kingdom, the judge said, we gathered today to bear witness to the conclusion of the trial of King Wilbur, protector of the realm, ruler of the kingdom, and Technoblade, former general of the royal army. The people have spoken now, and all there is left to do is listen. He turned to Wilbur, his grey eyebrows rising in question. Would you like one last thing to say, Our Majesty, before we tip the jars? Wilbur opened his mouth, closed it, began shaking his head. Techno stepped forward. The king, he began, as well as I, thank you all for coming here today. I see familiar faces in the crowd. I fought next to you, have seen your bravery firsthand, and I know what it cost all of you to come here today. He took a deep breath, met every eye on the floor and mezzanine. It felt like standing before the dead. It felt like reckoning long overdue. Everybody here lost someone in the war. A friend, a parent, a neighbor. And you know what our king lost too? Though we are united in our loss, and you know what, though we are united in our loss, that does not excuse the lapse in my and Wilbur's judgments. Made a continuous and I don't know, lapse in my day, whatever. A YouTube apology. Why I bring this up? We made mistakes, deadly ones. We believed ourselves invincible and were too late to act against the encroaching enemy. And you all paid for a price that should have been ours alone. Whatever you have decided today, we will call it justice. That is all. When Techno stepped back, Wilbur caught his sleeve. He anticipated a dry remark about his unexpected diplomacy, and was surprised when we were simply mouthed, "Thank you." Techno nodded hesitantly at him, confused to what there was to be thankful for. After all, he was only doing his job. The judge read out more legal jargon that Techno had already heard hundreds of times before, and then, with the very hands he'd used to put a crown on Wilbur's head, he gestured for the jars to be overturned. They looked like vases. They gleamed like urns. Wilbur's hand slipped into Techno's, his bitten down nails digging into Techno's knuckles. Techno closed his eyes. He did not know which god would still listen to him, so he prayed to them all, the war god, dream, Filza, exile, or exoneration. It was out of his hands. He would be ready for both. Techno waited for the clatter of stones and marble. It never came. The boy who had come of age in blood and fire stood before a lake with his fist curled gently around a stone. The surface of the lake was calm and still, a mirror of the sky above it, and Tabo wondered if it would feel like Tabo wondered what it would feel like to float in it, to swim in sunlight. By this time, in a city far from here, the king and the general Tabo had followed into war would be counting the votes of those who wanted them gone. Tabo ran his thumb along the smooth edge of the stone in his hand, turning it idly between his fingers as he looked out the lake. It would freeze over soon when the winter came. Tabo would be ready then. He pulled his hand back and threw. With his might, the stone skipped once, twice, thrice, across the surface before skinding into the blue sky, leaving ripples at the distant, ripples and disappeared in a blink of an eye, and the lake was still once more. Tabo grabbed the axe that hung from his hip. It was starting to rust, and constant use had worn away the handle, but it would hold for just a bit more. It was a familiar, reliable weight in his hand, and he swung it beside him as he walked towards the forest. He needed more firewood to keep his sister warm. Time unfurled like a ribbon. They filled their days with mundane problems, untuned instruments, tea turning cold, and weeds needing plugged. The dutiful, benevolent king and his right hand, who struggled to stay awake during half of the political meetings and spent the other half actively antagonizing psychopaths he deemed too, oh my god, I can't read all these words. What are these words? Irksome. Wilbur had publicly proclaimed that there was nothing amusing about Techno threatening to burn the pompous wig of a merchant trying to lobby trade routes away from local vendors, but his eyes had gleamed with the promise of later laughter. I'm gonna clean my nose again. In the spring, The two of them went down to the orchards and spent their days in friendly rivalry over who picked the most fruit. Most years Technos won, only because Wilbur was often distracted by a woman with long, curling hair as red as the apples in the basket. It took him 2 years to ask her name, another 2 to ask her to marry him. Her name was Sally. Sorry. And she said yes. Fucking Sally. My God. When their first child was born, a baby boy. With hair the color of Tommy's last sunset, Wilbur took him into his arms without hesitation. He pressed his fucking Sally. Sorry, tear-stained cheek against his son, warm skin, and whispered, "I will love you forever," over and over until he was sure his son knew it. And the son would grow up under no one's shadow, calling Wilbur dad and Techno uncle, in a kingdom of hard-won peace. In time he would know the story of the Blue Valley and the story of his other uncle and the story of his grandparents, but until then he would think all gods were kind and his father never cried. His uncle would carve his hide into the marble column of the ivory-covered pavilion. Where he learned how to paint. There we go. And he would wonder why his father's brother would turn away, whether he passed almost faded marks on the boy that had stood there before him. The hair of the angel of death's kingdom, and his hairs, and all the hairs after him, would not have gilded hair or eyes like a frozen tundra. They would have gentle hands and would forgive easily. They would be raised on honey and apple pies and stories about frogs in the rain, and the wheel would never break them. And on the night before, an ancient crown would be placed upon their brow. Those that came before them would press a gift into their hand. It would be their inheritance. So when a winged man would appear from the north, days or years or eons from now, he would find a familiar stone around the neck of a child that he would recognize right away by the familiar shape of their smile, or he would know he was home. He would know he was home. Sorry. He had a life before this, a mother, a father, a home, sisters and brothers, but what he had now was a right too. He stood alone in front of his bedroom mirror, combing his hair back from his face to braid it for the day. I can't talk anymore. Tucking it behind an ear where a sapphire earring hung, catching the sunlight. He paused when he saw it, leaned in close, just to make sure it wasn't a trick on the light or the lingering traces of a dream. He blinked once, twice, thrice, his mortal heart catching on his throat. There, nestled among the pink strands, delicate as the bird's wing, was a single grey hair. If he listened carefully, he could hear his brother coming down the hallway, looking for him. But this moment was alone. I can't speak anymore. Half sobbing, half laughing, he fell against his chair and closed his eyes against the sudden string of tears. He could see in his mind a field of flowers under an open sky, a place made for waiting. There, all the finished stories went, where he would go someday too. A knock came at his door, and Technoblade began to smile. Hey! Wait, let me give you all of these. Hey! And that was passerine. I'm sorry that the last part of it was a little bit shaky. I think it's just because I'm sick and it's hard for me to focus, or ill. But I think we should watch the saddest animation now, because that's what inspired me.
Woohoo! You finished passerine.
Yes! Good soup.
But anyways, I must sleep as it is late.
Good soup.
Enjoy life is strange. Feel better and have fun with Jack.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Smiley face.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Thank you for the gifted sub, Chris on live. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. All right. Let's oh, do I have a screen capture here? Do I have a display capture? Let me look. Properties. I do. Perfect. There we go. All right. I think it's time because this is what inspired me in the first place to... No, it's not the Chromebook. The Chromebook did not inspire me to read Passerine, but this did. The animatic did. And I think this is the perfect time. I do not care. I'm sorry, Mr. Bond. I do not care. All right, here we go. Oh, YouTube's anime. Yes, we already got the YouTubes though. So.
On YouTube.com. It's me taken in physical form, and it has little trinkets that relates to some of the animations that I did. Once it sells out,
very
it's
cute,
gone
very
forever.
cute.
You don't want that, so get them while you can. Link is in the description below. And yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.
Bye. All right, chat. All right, are we ready? Are we ready? I'm ready. Thank you for the sub, Brady. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. I'm getting chills, chat. I'm getting chills. Oh, we know that scene too. Oh no, I'm actually getting chills. Now I understand it. Wow. Blue Valley. That's them leaning against the gravestone.